Hi. We have a lot of things that we want to share with you, and today's message is just one of them. I want to invite you to come and participate in our services here. Join us here every Sunday morning at 9:30 for our Bible study. We have different speakers that come, and I think you'll enjoy them. Matter of fact, today's message is also one of those. I have a special message for you each and every Sunday morning at 10:30 right here at Crossroads, which meets at Theater 3, 2800 Ruth Street in Howell, right here in Uptown Dallas. So if you have this Sunday off, come and visit with us, and let's go to the service right now. It is Palm Sunday. And I was thinking about it this week, as a couple of weeks now, and I thought I would do something a little different. You know, after you've been in ministry as long as I have, you've done Palm Sunday a lot. A lot. And I thought to myself, it's okay, it's electronics, Marvin. There you go. I thought I wanted to do a little something different. So I decided instead of starting with Palm Sunday, I would back up a couple of days. And we'll take a look at, I think, a pretty important event that a lot of times people overlook. When I was growing up, I was kind of slender when I wore skinny jeans. Plumped out now, but wore skinny jeans when I was a kid.
I wore Huskies, thank you very much.
Okay. My church wife over there wears Huskies. Okay. So I was a different kind of kid. I was what you call a nerd. I was very interested in science. I enjoyed math. I enjoyed lots of different things. I enjoyed music and still do. Enjoyed art. And because I enjoyed a lot of different things that were learned things, you know, they weren't sports. I didn't play sports. But you know, when we were growing up, you had to play a sport. And I was always the last person picked, but they always put me on the pitcher mound because I could strike everybody out. They didn't want me to play because I didn't fit in. But at the same time, I had a skill set that worked. But I was the nerd, I was the geek, you could say all those things. And people called me queer back then. Not because of my sexuality, because I really didn't even know about it back then. But when I was growing up, people called me that because I was different than them. Grew up different. Grew up in church where a lot of people where I grew up, you know, we grew up in the same town. A lot of people didn't go to church. I mean, as many churches as there were in Wichita Falls, I mean, I grew up in church. A lot of people didn't. I mean, they spent their weekends going out, doing things, family things and stuff like that, but I was just different. I remember when I was a kid, I used to watch Mr. Wizard. Anybody here watch Mr. Wizard? In the afternoons, get off of school, I'd watch Mr. Wizard. I think I had a crush on him. Because I enjoyed watching, because he's always doing kinds of crazy things, and I would try to do those same things because I enjoyed that. When I got older, I went to Wichita Falls Senior High, and it was like the old high school. It's old. It is still old. Creeping, falling apart back then, and it still is today. You can go by and see it. And my freshman year, I was kind of involved in a lot of things, the AP classes and stuff like that. And I did really well in school, and I thought about finishing early just to get rid of all the people that were still anti-me. And but I had a good eye for art, and I was great at photography, so I made annual staff when I was a junior. Wasn't supposed to, because only seniors were supposed to be on it, but they needed somebody who could take good pictures, and I did. I took really great pictures. Well, my senior year was the first year in Wichita Falls. I mean, we're celebrating, a lot of people are celebrating Selma today, and they're having marches across the country and meetings and celebrations and things. And that year was the first year that Wichita Falls had desegregated their schools. So they'd closed Booker T. Washington High School. Is it still closed?
No, it's a
Math Science School. But they had closed it, and they started busing. And I was there with my camera the very first year that all these buses came in. And it was all blacks, moving them to an all-white school, or mostly white, had some blacks because of the school district and a few Hispanics, but they were bringing all these kids in, and it was busload after busload after busload. So I was out there, and I was taking pictures, snap, 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 snap. Well, I didn't realize until after the fact that I'd actually taken a picture of a stabbing of one of the students getting off the bus. There was a lot of conflict, a lot of just stuff. And I didn't realize till later that I'd actually captured the picture with the instrument in the hand going right for this young student. And I'm not going to tell you what color they are because it doesn't matter. And I went and developed the film, and later the police did a lot of investigation, and my pictures were part of that, and I became kind of a notoriety kind of a person then. My name was in the newspaper and all that kind of stuff. And so suddenly all the people that didn't like me liked me because I was somewhat of a star in front of all these people. And so I was sitting there thinking, you know, they didn't like me before, but now they like me. And I knew then that it was only because of what I had done. It's only because of that. I don't know how many of you were called names when you were kids. Anybody here else called names when you were kids that didn't fit? The names really didn't fit. I wasn't queer. I was actually dating white folks back then. And girls and guys didn't matter. I wasn't dating guys. I wasn't seeing guys. Because back then, you really would have been queer had you been doing that. Especially in Wichita Falls, as redneck as they are. Sorry, cut that out. Okay. Shall know the truth, and the truth will set those people free, right? We'll make a special thing for them. We'll make a Wichita Falls edition and then an everybody else edition of this tape. But I really was, before that time, a person non grata before all of that. But I think, you know, today we need to realize that there is innocence behind that. Because you can be what you are, and other people still call you things, and you are the only one that knows the truth. You are the sole beneficiary of the truth. You hold that truth on the inside of you, even while other people call you things that are not true. Not true. So I want us to take a look today at a man in the Bible whose name was Innocence. But people found everything else about him but that, and called him everything else but that. Jesus was making his way to Jerusalem, and he had to stop by Jericho. Jericho is about 17 miles outside of Jerusalem. So he's still a couple of days away, maybe 2 or 3 days away, when he pays a visit to a guy in the Bible who I have heard every preacher, every Bible story talk about, a guy by the name of Zacchaeus. And this story reads, as we're going to read here, but the problem is, people jump to the wrong conclusions about people, and they don't know the truth until you find it out. Until you truly find it out. So I want us to take a look here, and we're going to start reading in Luke chapter 19, and we're going to read verses 1 through 9, because this is the story of Jesus coming into Jericho and paying this visit to Zacchaeus. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through town. A man there named Zacchaeus, a ruler, high official of the tax collectors, was rich. Now, you know, when other people call somebody rich and it's derogatory, what are they usually? Poor. And they use the term rich as a derogatory thing, as if they got it by some ill means. He was trying to see who Jesus was. But being a short man, he couldn't because of the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed up in a sycamore tree so that he could see Jesus, who was about to pass that way. Oops, yeah, okay. I'm not reading from that, I'm reading from a note, so we'll read from here. When Jesus came to that spot, he looked up and said, "Zacchaeus, come down at once. I must stay in your home today." So Zacchaeus came down at once, happy to welcome Jesus. Everyone who saw this grumbled, saying, "He has gone to be a guest of a sinner." Zacchaeus stopped and said to the Lord, "Lord, look, Lord, I give half of my possessions to the poor. And if I have cheated anyone, I repay them 4 times as much." Jesus said to him, "Today, what? Salvation has come to this household, because he too is a son of Abraham. The human one came to seek and to save the lost. So let me ask you a question. If someone came up to you, and let's say you're looking for a new car, and you found this car and it was in the classifieds or in Craigslist or something like that, and you read in there that this car was being sold by a teenager because he was getting a new car, but you had heard a story about somebody else having bought a car from a teenager, and that person made the statement that the car was really high mileage, it used oil, it smoked out the back, and boy, when you opened the trunk, it smelled like rotten eggs on the inside of it. And that would kind of have a tendency to taint you going to take a look at that new car by that young kid, wouldn't it? Even if you were going to buy it for somebody else. Because of what somebody else had and projected that thought, you probably wouldn't. You probably wouldn't go buy that car. And so oftentimes it's by what other people project that we receive to be true. Faith comes by what? Hearing. So does a fallacy come by hearing. Falsehood comes by hearing. You hear people talk about other people all the time, and what they say has a tendency to color or to taint the way we think about people. The problem with that is it may not always be true. It may not always be true. So there's this young couple, and they're having a little daughter. They knew that because of the sonogram. And they were thinking about what they were going to call this little girl. And they were kind of going between toss-up of names. They were talking with two S names because I think it was what they were going to use in their family. And one of the names that they were looking at was Sally, and the other one was Surrey. I think that's interesting. And they thought, well, you know, let's look up, and before we decide, let's find out what their names mean. You know, meaning to names are very important. If you go back and study the Bible, everybody's name was important to them. It was given to them for a particular reason. So they went back and they started looking up, the origins of names. And Sally in Hebrew or Old English means princess. Suri also in Hebrew means princess, but in Japanese, Suri means pickpocket. And in Hindi, it means pig. So knowingly, would you name your child? You cute little Surrey, oink, 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 oink. You wouldn't do that. You would not name your child something that would be derogatory, would you? No. But Zacchaeus' parents named him that because his name means innocence. You know, I've done a lot of studies and a lot of words, but I'll tell you something. I found this to be so true. Zacchaeus is the Greek form of the Hebrew name meaning innocent. I think it's interesting that Jesus went to his house because he too was innocent. Everybody else had it in for who? Everybody had it in for Zacchaeus because they said, oh, he's rich. You know, and he's probably crooked too. How did he get all that money? How did he live in that big house? How did he have all those servants? Something's got to be wrong with that picture right there. He does too well to be just a tax collector. He's got to be stealing from everybody he knows. But his name means what? Innocent. You know, I've done a lot of studies. I know you have done some studies too. It takes a bit to kind of figure out everything that's intentionally said, all the nuances of everything. And that was helped to me from the Holman Dictionary, which I thought was pretty interesting. But he was described in all of Scripture as a corrupt tax collector. This is what people took away from that story. And that's what they called him, was the fact that he was a corrupt first century Jericho tax collector. That's what the dictionary had to say about him. They didn't even look at the name or all of the other things that goes with that name. Because even here in Luke 19, verse 7, this is what the people had to say. Everyone who saw this, Jesus going into this house, they were all waiting for him. They knew he was coming. They saw him coming, And yet they wanted him to stop with them, but no, 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 no. He stopped with somebody else that everybody else didn't like. I thought that was pretty funny. How many of you know people in our community that other people don't like? Whole classes of people don't like, because we are different. And I've been in California the last couple of weeks, and I don't know if you've seen it here, but the sodomite law that they've been projecting in California is horrific. They have a guy who's an attorney who is writing a piece of legislation that the Attorney General of the state of California is trying to dismiss before it ever gets on the ballot. It is working its way to the ballot. They want to make it legal in California to put a bullet to the head of anyone who sleeps with someone of the same sex. Doesn't matter where they're at, you will have the right, if you have knowledge of that person sleeping with another individual, you have the right to put them to death right there on the street. And we're thinking, how in the world could this possibly? I read that before I went out there. And Marvin, it's all over. It's all over. And they're afraid that the judge is not going to allow the Attorney General to pull that. If they get 300,000 signatures, it will go on the ballot. Now, don't you think between all the people that you and I know that are so far right that they could probably pull together 300,000? Because there are groups of people that don't like us, that call us names, that look at us and say, we're the wrong people. They look at us because we prosper, that we do well, because we've had to learn how to do something well because we're different. We had to. But here, this guy, he is in a place of innocence, but yet everybody else is convinced that he is doing something wrong. Doing something wrong. You know what? In all these years, I've never heard one good sermon about Zacchaeus. Not one, but you're going to hear one today. Because I think you need to hear what the Bible could say if you just decided to take one word differently. Just one word. And we're going to take a look at that word in just a moment. So let's take a look at these are two different ways that this verse reads in two different versions of the Bible. I like to look at about a dozen before I decide on what I'm going to use. So this is what it says here. This is in the NIV. Look, Lord, here and now I give. Everybody underline, nobody's underlining anymore. Nobody has real Bibles anymore. We've got electronic things. The word give is what we're going to take a look at in a moment. Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor. And this is what it says in KJV. Lord, behold, the half of my goods I give to the poor, and if I have taken anything from any man by false accusation, I restore him fourfold. Do those look like the same verse? No. Do they look like they read anywhere close? See, people are projecting what they believe to be true because of one other verse where it says they all called him a ruthless, corrupt man. So the writers of KJV have come back and said, well, we'll add to that. You can't add to that. The first one, the NIV, is a little bit more true to the sense of what I'm getting ready to share with you about the word give in just a moment. Unfortunately, not everything I've looked up pays off. There's some things that are just the way they are. But sometimes you find a different look. And that's what I want to bring to you today. For instance, classified ads. Here's another one about a car. So if we were to read this, garage kept, highway miles, owned by a little old lady who drove it mostly to church on Sunday. Now you might think that that's a good car. But is it the truth? You don't really know until you try to find out, do you? But see, you have to do the work. You're going to have to go look at the car, look under the hood, get a mechanic to take a look at it, see if those miles haven't been rolled back, see if there's fairly new car tires on there for the amount of miles that are on there, all that kind of stuff. You have to do to check it out. You just can't assume that it's right or wrong. And you can't assume about somebody else until you know. You can't throw something on them just because of what someone else has said about them and believe it to be true. People have a power of influence. And here in this story, Zacchaeus has been labeled and touted as this corrupt individual. You know, I just don't see him that way, because when we take a look, it's not always going to be true. It may not be true about Zacchaeus. You know, I don't think he's as shady and as fraudulent as the people here may have painted him to be. But we got to remember who's in this crowd. Who's in the crowd that are there as Jesus is coming through Jericho? Who are these people? What? Well, they're poor people, but you know what? You got to think about this. There are Jews in that crowd, original descendants of the tribe of Israel. That's who these people are. They are ultimately wanting to have the Jewish nation restored. That's what they want, but Rome is overpowering. So they're there, and they're not happy that they've heard that Jesus is coming to set up his kingdom on this earth. So they're not happy. We've also got the Zealots there. The Zealots are a group of people who are radical militants wanting to overthrow Rome and all of its tax collectors. So they don't have a good word for this guy. Then you got the Pharisees and other religious political party leaders who wanted to influence and to have power over everyone. And anyone associated with Rome or the collection of money for its government would have been seen as bad as well, because it's all going to Rome. It's all going to Rome. It's all going to Rome. So this guy who's taking the money from the Jews, sending it to Rome, it's all wrong. He's not good. He is just facilitating Rome keeping thumbs on the rest of us. He's not a good guy. But we have to remember, Zacchaeus' name means what? You see, when we named our kids, I don't know about you and Rainey when you named your kids, but we gave all of our kids, all 4 girls, names that were different, because I had already done all the studies about boys and girls in classes, and that boys are called 3 to 1 for every girl's name called. Boys are called 3 times more, except when the girls have an unusual name. So we gave Charity her name, and that was long before Chastity. We gave Spice her name because it's after the gold, frankincense, and myrrh, Charity, Faith, Hope, and Charity. And we gave Melody her name from the old Baptist hymn, In My Heart There Rings a Melody. And then we gave Abigail because Abigail was the name of one of David's daughters, one of David's wives, excuse me. And her name means joy of her father. And she's lived up to that. All my kids have. So I have to think that if I'd named my little girl Pickpocket, she would have grown up to be a pickpocket. If I'd named, I can't imagine me. Come on. Well, you know, there's a group of family here in this state whose last name is Hogg, and the first name of one of the kids was Ima, and the other is Ura. No joke. And who in the world would have named their children that? But they did. But I don't think parents would have named their child something that they wouldn't have grown into. And if you read about the story about Jabez, in 1 Chronicles 4:9, you might want to go back and look at that. That person's name was given out of the result of what was going on in that family. That's where we get Jabez's prayer. But there's all of this plot and this drama going on all around Jesus coming into Jerusalem. It's 3 days before he's entering into the city of Jerusalem. He's entering into Jericho. These people have anticipated, waited to see him, and now he's made a decision not to parley with all of the rich, all the best, all the finest of Jericho. He has done just the opposite in their eyes. He's decided to go and spend the evening with a piece of trash. But the story turns around here. Here's the word give. Didomi. In the indicative present active tense, and that's what this word is in Greek, reads, I am donating, or I am giving. You can use that to say I'm going to, or I currently already am giving. You can say, I'm giving that, or I am already giving that. So here's the way we could read it from a different perspective. I not only have been giving half of everything I have to the poor, but I plan to continue to give half in the future. Does that not make him different? It's not because he was a bad guy. See, that was the inflection of the writer on that particular verse. But here we see that, you know what? He has already been giving. This guy is not a bad guy. This guy is innocent. He hasn't been stealing. He hasn't putting his thumb on the scale as he's collected for Rome. He has actually not only been taking what he has, but he's given half of it away. Now, I think that stands to change our opinion of Zacchaeus. Because he too is innocent. And Jesus, even though he's been called every name in the book by all these people who are right there, but they want him to come spend the day with him. Oh, we want you to come spend. That's what I felt like when everybody in high school wanted me to take their picture after that. You didn't want to have anything to do with me until suddenly I had some notoriety. I understood that. I got that. And here now, Jesus is coming in, and these people have had nothing but bad things to say about him, but now they want him to be a part of it because he's going in. Look at all these people that are gathered around to walk with you into Jerusalem. And now you're going to take what we want now, and you're going to go and give it to this guy who's worthless? They were angry. They were mob angry. But his name still means innocent. Actually, he's a good guy. Zacchaeus, innocent. He becomes a generous giver. He's an honest businessman. He's a philanthropist. He is a humanitarian. He's a charitable giver. Everything he does is as if he already knows the Lord. Why do you think this little short guy would do everything in his power to run to see who Jesus was? He had what? Heard about him and all the things that he had done. Faith comes by what? Hearing. This guy had heard about, hey, this is the son of David. This is what we're hearing, and I need to go see him. But you know what? All of those other people, big people, prominent people, the best that Jericho had, would not let this short guy in. They stood in his way. Oh no, you're not getting the front row seat. I'm here. I'm more prominent than you are. You head to the back of the bus. Zacchaeus, what did he do? He only did what he knew he could do. He ran up and climbed up a tree. I think it's interesting, the things when we were kids, there was a little song about Zacchaeus, wasn't there? Anybody remember that? Zacchaeus was a little old man. I can't remember. I got it written down somewhere here. Wee little man, and wee little man was he. See you all do that. How many times did we sing that when we were sitting in primary school, primary classes at First Baptist, at whatever church it was? We heard that little song. We sang that little song. We heard about this crooked little guy that Jesus came to see. So he'll come to visit you, you little crooked person. That's what I got out of it when I was a kid. Entirely opposite. Jesus went to sit with him because he was innocent when all the rest of the people weren't. He was going to have himself compared in their eyes to what they felt was bad, because he too was innocent going to the cross. Luke 18, Jesus is already told his disciples and the people 3 different times that the reason why he's going to Jerusalem is he's going to die. He's going to die. He was going to die. That's all. The crowd, the religious people, moral elites, crowd of descendants of Abraham, the richest, the best, the most powerful people, he kept telling them, you know what, you're going to lose everything you got as far as I'm concerned. He said, because you know what, when the kingdom of God has come to this earth, it will not be reigning on the fact that you were born of Abraham. It's going to be because you're born of the Son of God. Because you're going to come and follow me. They didn't like that because they had years of inheritance. They could quote their names all the way back. Who their father was, their father's father, that father's father, all the way back through. Their whole heritage was what they're banking on. That somewhere in some time I'll get there because of who I am, not because of who I know. So we see this. Jesus will be handed over to the Romans to be mocked and treated shamefully and spat upon. That sounds like Zacchaeus to me. And they will whip him and kill him, but on the 3rd day he will rise again. But they didn't understand a thing Jesus said. Its significance was hidden from them, and they failed to grasp what he was talking about. You know, Jesus often, matter of fact, I can't remember a time that he really talked out plainly. It was always kind of shrouded with a little something, a little nuance of, you got to be deeper in thought. What I'm talking to you is not on the surface level. Everything that I have to say and everything that I'm talking about has a different level. You're going to have to go deeper than where you've ever been before. They didn't get it. They didn't understand. And that's why they didn't understand him going to visit Zacchaeus either. They didn't understand that. They didn't get it. Crowd's going to yell out and wave palms, and they're going to shout and cry out. They didn't get it. The reason why he's going there is to die. An innocent man. It's no accident that Jesus was going to have dinner with Zacchaeus. No accident at all. He had planned to be compared to a guy that wasn't anyone, that was still innocent. A woman walked into a pharmacist, made the statement to the pharmacist. She said, do you have anything for hiccups? I really got to have something for hiccups. And the pharmacist thought, well, you know what I can do? I can just duck down behind the counter. And so he did. He ducked down behind the counter, and he jumped up, woo! And she backed out, backed up. What did you do that for? He said, well, you don't have the hiccups anymore, do you? She said, well, of course not. It wasn't for me that I was asking. It's for my husband in the car. Do we get everything right every time? No, we don't. How many times do we jump to the wrong conclusions? Rush to the wrong judgment? Wrong really about everything because we're not willing to find out on our own. Zacchaeus really turns out to be a person of faith because Jesus came there today to say, salvation has come to you. I'm walking into your life. You've had everything else but me, and now you have me too. See, I think about all the people in our community that have had so much, that have been pushed away so hard, so far. So all they need to know is that, you know what? Jesus wants to walk into your life too. You may think you have everything going for you. You may have a great job, a great partner, a great house, great car, all the money you can spend, all the liquor you can drink. But what you need is you need to have Jesus walk into your life. That's what you need. That's what everybody needs. He demonstrated generosity, kindness, mercy. Can you do that for other people? Can you be Jesus and walk into somebody's life and bring something to them that only Jesus can bring? Life everlasting. This week we have that opportunity. You know, Sunday I'm going to be talking about life and life everlasting. So I hope you'll bring someone with you to church. Because just like Zacchaeus could have been all the things that other people call them, beyond reach, no one wants to help him, you know somebody like that, don't you? I think we all do. Let's take a moment. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for the opportunity that we have to come before you this morning and maybe look differently at one person who's been painted so bad for years, centuries. But get a different look. Maybe the look that Jesus had when he said, "This day salvation has come to you." While all those other people are self-righteous and so proud of who they are and how religious they are, salvation has come to you because you're already doing everything you can do but to have me. Heavenly Father, if there's someone here today that doesn't know Jesus that way, it's so easy. So easy. No matter what you've heard, he loves you with an undying love. Paid a great price so that you could live with him in eternity. I just want you don't even have to say it out loud. Just say it in your heart. Just say, "Dear Lord Jesus, I open the door to my heart and I invite you to come in. Take control of the throne of my life and make me the kind of person that you want me to be. I want to find myself right alongside of you. I don't care what people call me for it. I don't care what people think."
Hi, and thank you for watching today's service. As I spoke to you at the beginning, we have a couple of outreaches which I think are important for you to know that we're participating in, and you might want to join us. We've got one, which is our orphanage in Uganda. It's 320 children that have been left there because their parents have either died or are affected by HIV/AIDS. There are no relatives that will take them in because it's such a stigma to have HIV or even to be gay there in Uganda. We also have a church in Tegucigalpa, Honduras. It's just a starting work, but there's a lot that we can do to help them. And if you'd like to join and be a part of that, we invite you to go to our webpage, www.crossroadscommunitychurch.us, and you'll see a tab there that says donation. You can make your donation through PayPal. It's secure, and we'll get that and we'll send it on to them. So if you'd like to participate, we thank you for doing it in advance because we know that God is going to bless you. Thank you for watching today, and tune in next week.